theme tonight is let it go. Flowing with that universal flow. Now, when we say let it go, what do we mean? Let what go? Nobody means take your house, take your car, take your possessions, take your children and dump them in a river or dump them in the Pacific Ocean and then you'll be free and happy. It's not about that. It's not about a physical letting go of things in our life. Nothing in nature throws away that which it already has. So it's not about giving up or letting go what we have. It's about letting go of that which is preventing us from living in the grace, from living in that flow, from feeling that graceful flow moving in our lives. There's a wonderful story of a man who was a very, very deep spiritual seeker. And he had done so much sadhana and so much reading and meditation and learning and this course and that course. And he decided, now I'm ready for enlightenment. And he asked around to everybody, he said, who's the guru who can actually bring me enlightenment? Who can take me to this next step? And everybody said to him, oh, there's this one guru and he lives on the top of this mountain. He's the right one. So the man walked and walked and walked and climbed mountains, and finally he gets to the top of the mountain where this guru lives and enters the cave, and he sees the yogi in meditation, and he bows at his feet and he says, Guruji, I've come to you for enlightenment. I'm ready for this next step. Here's what I've done. Here's what I've learned. Here's what I've experienced. Here's now what I need. Here are my challenges. And the Guru said, let's have some tea. And the man said, tea? I didn't come for tea. I came for enlightenment. And the Guru said, let's have some tea. So he goes to the back of the cave and he brings back a teapot. And in front of the man he puts a cup and he starts to pour the tea into the man's cup. And he pours and the cup gets fuller and fuller, and finally the tea has reached the top of the cup, and the man keeps pouring. Sorry, the Guru keeps pouring, and now the tea is overflowing off the cup onto the floor. And the man says, wait, the cup can't hold anymore, it's full. And the Guru says, you are like this cup. You're so full of what you think you know, what you think you need, what you think you've learned, that there's nothing for me to give you. There's no room in you for anything I can give. And in our lives, we have filled ourselves so much with what we think the obstacles are, what we think the problems are, what we think is wrong, that it's no wonder we don't feel grace flowing in our lives. Our cup is so full already that there's no room for us to experience the grace. But the question then becomes not, how can I bring that grace? But how can I empty my cup? Puja Swamiji always talks about, he says, the sun is shining. We are sitting inside with our curtains drawn, praying for the sun, bemoaning the darkness. So it's not about chanting the right mantras to bring the sun, or chanting the right mantras for the tea to flow. It's about opening the blinds and emptying the cup so that we can experience that light and experience that flow and experience that grace. Physically and medically, when we have heart attacks, it's not that there's not enough blood or that the blood is bad. It's that the artery is clogged. There's too much cholesterol in that artery for the blood to flow. So the heart's unable to benefit from the blood that we have. So when someone has heart disease, it's never about, oh, get this man more blood or get this woman better blood. It's about, can we clear the arteries so the blood can flow? And that's really what this is all about. For most of us, when we talk about let it go, or we say, oh, I've got to let go, we tend to think of things outside of ourselves. So we say, oh, I need a glass of wine to let it go, or I need to go here to let it go, and there's nothing wrong with going places. It's wonderful. The world is huge. The world is beautiful. Absolutely, if we've got the luxury of time and resources to be able to go places, sure. But the lack of going there is not what's bringing that difficulty in our life, or that tension in our life. It's from within. Think about it for a moment. If you went to the most spectacular Mozart concert or the most beautiful opera, and you thought, oh, going to the opera, going to listen to Mozart, that's gonna relax me. I'll be able to let it go. But sitting right next to you in the audience was a screaming kid who wailed the entire show. Now, it doesn't matter how fabulous the Mozart was or how beautiful the opera was. If that kid is wailing next to us, we won't be able to hear it, or if we do, we're not going to be able to really let go into the experience because of that kid. And for so many of us in our lives, that's what happens. We've got these screaming voices in our head that are not allowing us to hear that flow, to hear that grace, to hear that music in our lives. And so then we ask ourselves, well, how to get rid of them? And the first part of that is, well, what are they? What are these screaming voices? And without going too much into it, for most of us, they're just voices of desire and fear. Things we want, these things should happen, or things we don't want to happen. It's not desires themselves that are wrong. Desires are the catalysts for what get us out of bed in the morning. Desires are what motivate us to move, to work, to create, to invent, to imagine. If we can't envision it, we can't see it, we can't create it. So the desire gives us the vision. But the problem becomes when we get so stuck with exactly how it's going to work. So I will let go if everything happens the way I want it to. If the universe makes me really rich, really successful, really healthy, really beautiful, in exactly the way that I want to be, successful and wealthy and beautiful and perfect, well, then I'll let go. But if not, then I won't. And the problem with that is that when we hold so tenaciously to our vision, our agenda, exactly how success and prosperity and joy and health are going to come in our lives, neither do we end up with that, because we've clutched it so tightly that there's no room even for it to manifest? Or are we able to actually experience the success, the prosperity, the health, the joy that the universe has in store for us? So letting go does not mean give up. It doesn't mean resign yourself or get used to a life of poverty and failure or illness. No. It just means let go into the faith that the universe knows you are supposed to be successful and prosperous and healthy and cared for, and that the universe has a plan, has a vision, and knows much better than we do. Think about it for a moment. A seed comes onto the earth, and it gets planted, or it plants itself. The rain rains upon it, the sun shines upon it. Nobody needs to come by and say to it, okay, now sprout. It doesn't need a pep talk or a therapy session to get over its inhibitions of sprouting, or its fear of sprouting and going above the surface, or knowing when to sprout. It doesn't need a special meditation course to find out when is my moment. It knows. It just happens. The caterpillar knows when to weave its cocoon. And then it knows when it's time to come out of its cocoon and be a butterfly. You never see caterpillars crawling on the ground to have missed the moment to build the cocoon. Or cocoons hanging where the caterpillar fell asleep and forgot to come out as a butterfly, or that it opened its cocoon too fast and fell out as a caterpillar. They know. But the problem with us becomes that we've got such a narrow vision and such a specific, rock-solid vision of exactly how it's supposed to be. And that vision usually bears so little connection to the will of the universe. It tends to be things that we've built up based on a TV show we saw, a commercial we saw, the magazines we read, what our siblings are doing, what someone we idolize is doing, what our parents told us we could never do. And we hold on to that so tightly that we miss that inner voice. If the seed decided in the middle of winter, in the middle of snowy winter in New York with 2 feet of snow, that now it was going to sprout, and damn everyone who told them that it was not ready to sprout and this was the time. Well, if it sprouted into the snow, that would be the end of the sprout. If it was so attached to its idea that it has to be right now in this way, and wasn't able to listen to that inner voice that kept it quiet until springtime, it would never become a tree. It would die as a sprout. And if the caterpillar spent so much time, bemoaning the fact that it only had 8 or 16 legs and the millipede had 1,000, and why did it always get the short end of the stick, and everybody always got something better than it did, and really it was supposed to be a millipede, and it dreamt of being a millipede, and it chanted, I should have 1,000-leg mantras. It might miss that call to weave its cocoon. And so neither would it ever become a millipede, Because of course one can't really think oneself an extra, 992 more legs. But it also never would become a butterfly. And that's the tragedy that so many of us are facing. We all have within us, just like the seed, just like the caterpillar, the universe knew what it was doing when it put us here. There is a plan. There is a purpose. There is a meaning. There is a path. And all we have to do is let go into it. Allow ourselves to breathe into it and have the faith that I know I'm supposed to sprout, I know I'm supposed to sprout, and I'm so sick and tired of waiting. But do I have to sprout in the middle of winter? If everything around me is telling me it's not the right time, must I be so stubborn to decide that now must be the time? And miss that ability in the spring to become a fabulous tree. So when we say let go, it's not about give up, it's the exact opposite. It's let go only of that which we're crushing with our own minds, with our own emotions, with our own egos, with our own desires, our own stubbornness, so that we can't realize what the universe is already giving us. I want to conclude with a beautiful parable of a man who was clutching and clutching to a rope for dear life. He was hanging. And this rope is what was holding him alive. But of course it became very, very difficult and very tiring to be clutching to this rope all the time, but he had no choice. If he let go, he would plummet to his death. So one day, he hears the voice of this angel, and she says, let go. If you let go, you will actually find all of the freedom, all of the joy, all of the peace that you want. And he says, but I can't let go. If I let go, I'm going to fall. And she says, okay, well, maybe you could let go with just one finger. And she seems so beautiful and so divine, and so he's got a little faith, and he thinks, all right, well, one finger wouldn't hurt. So he lets go with one finger and discovers a level of calmness and peace and joy. So when she tells him to let go of the second finger and then the third finger, naturally he's scared and he's hesitant, but he does. And finally, when he gets down to holding on to this rope with only one finger, and he's bewildered because he doesn't understand how his one finger can be holding him up. But it is. And now she says to him, this last finger is up to you. You have to find that inner faith. You have to realize that which you're looking for, you will only attain when you let go. But of course it's the last finger, and if he lets go, he's going to plummet to his death. So he's very, very scared, and he doesn't want to, and it takes him a long time, but finally he musters the courage. And he lets go, and miraculously he doesn't fall. And he can't figure it out, because this rope was holding him up. And finally he looks down and he realizes he's standing on the earth. The rope had been unnecessary from the beginning. had been a figment of his imagination. Where he had thought that this rope was keeping him up, it actually had just imprisoned him. His clutching, his clinging, not only had tired him and worn him out, but it had created a situation where he couldn't do anything else, couldn't be anywhere, couldn't blossom in the way that the universe had intended because he was so busy clutching. That's really what it is. It's not let go and plummet to your death. It's let go with the awareness that you're being held, you're being supported, you're being nurtured and nourished and cared for. And it's only this clinging and clutching, that full cup, that's keeping you from being able to move in the flow. So when we let go of that, then the universe takes care of the rest.